What's up, everybody? It's another episode of the CompileSwift Podcast. I'm your host, Peter Whittam. You can find this podcast at CompileSwift.com/podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be answering a question that came up in a recent live stream that was put to me regarding my viewpoints on bootcamps. So if that's something that interests you, this is an episode that you will definitely want to be paying attention to. Okay, so on a recent live stream, which you can find at twitch.tv/CompileSwift, I was asked a question from someone in the chat room, and thank you very much for the question. I addressed it there, but I'd like to go into further detail here regarding my viewpoints on coding bootcamps and what I thought of them. I think that coding bootcamps are, in general, a very good idea. I'm going to go through some sort of different areas of thoughts on this. The first one is that, I do think they're a good idea for someone who's never done any kind of software development before, and you want to see, you want to answer that question quickly. Is this the thing for me? And I think anytime you're looking at a career path, right, regardless of what the career is, very quickly the question you need to ask and answer is just that. Is this the career path I want to take? And I think that these short boot camps that normally last a couple of weeks, somewhere around there, and I want to say that I've never actually taken one, but I know plenty of people who have. They are a great way to answer that question because you're going to get a very quick dive into the different areas that are involved with software development, depending on what the bootcamp is. And it's going to give you a feel for the reality of it. Now, I say that because, there's no doubt that lately, of course, with the massive rise in mobile apps and things like that, there is kind of a bit of a shiny edge, if you like, to app development. It sounds like this really wonderful thing, and it's very cool and very in, and everybody wants to be doing it. But the truth of the matter is, if you was to ask any developers that do this professionally every day, day in, day out, it's not only is it just like any other job, but it can be very tough. It is very, very stressful. Things like tools are constantly changing. The languages are constantly changing. The requirements for software are constantly changing. And these are all things you just have to be able to take in your stride and deal with. And if you're working for a company as well, the other thing to take into account is they're not necessarily going to be able to give you all the time you need to learn everything that you need. So there is a lot of after hours work that goes into it. I would say that, for every kind of standard 8-hour workday that I do, I probably do at least 3+ hours of stuff in the evenings to keep up with it all, keep up with the learning, stay on top of things. And that's not including things like conferences where you have to, maybe pay attention to those to get all the latest information. So go into it knowing that it is a very long process, and it's a very time-consuming process and very stressful. Yes, there is definitely no better feeling, I would say, than when you put an app in the App Store and someone gives you a 5-star review and says it's fantastic. Feels absolutely wonderful. But you also got to learn to deal with those 1-star reviews as well and take that kind of on the chin and live with it. So bootcamps are a great way to give you an idea of the reality of app development, and also for you to figure out if it's something that not only if you want to do it, but are you capable of doing it? You may find that it's just something you cannot wrap your brain around, and it's better to find that out early and to find it out quickly this way than spending, years at a university or college or something like that learning it. So those are some huge pluses for boot camps. Another one is, for many of the boot camps, they have agreements with companies and various placement organizations where they will do their best to try and find you a job at the end of it. And I've heard mixed experiences with that. Invariably, I would say, and this is just, again, stressing all of this episode is my opinions, just my personal opinions, but the very first programming job you get is probably not going to be, you're not going to have that. That's not your career. You're not going to be doing that forever, because it's very unlikely that the first one that you find and the first one that you take is going to be the exact kind of thing you want to do. Now, I say that because when you come in at kind of the ground level, you're going to get all of the, frankly, crappy work to do, right? You're not going to get the interesting new features and all of that kind of stuff. You're probably going to get stuck with bug fixes and all the mundane things that nobody else on the team with superiority compared to you wants to do, right? So they're going to give it to you. So be prepared for that. It is, again, basement level. It's very, very hard work. Now, put all of that aside, right? There's plenty of good parts to that. But I think that the downsides is that these, camps can misrepresent the industry in some ways, because they'll make it sound, it's kind of like a bit of a salesman thing. And I'm not picking on any of them in particular here, but their vested interest in their business model is that you pay to go to their boot camps, right? So they've got to sell it to you. They're not going to tell you some of the downsides, like, okay, but once you've finished the boot camp, you are still going to spend the rest of your career learning things continuously. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and sometimes a lot of money for courses and books and all of those kind of things. They're not necessarily going to tell you that because it'll put you off. I get that. But you need to recognize that this is a career path that you will forever be chasing, because you're always going to be behind the curve. We all are. Doesn't matter how much we know. There's always new things coming along that we have to learn regardless of how many years we've been doing it. And part of that too is I don't think that these boot camps teach you the skill of learning. I think that that's something you need to figure out for yourself, because for each of us, it's going to be different, right? For some of us, we can just pick things up and run with it. For others, we have to do it, 100 times before it really, groks in our brain, and away we go with it. So be very mindful that these these boot camps are designed to match as many people as they can. So they are somewhat, very generic in many ways. Now, that said, of course, I know there are some that are designed for specific topics in kind of a more intermediate and up level. That's different here. I think that most boot camps are really for people who are looking to get started in something, especially those that don't have any kind of background in this industry and looking for a fast way to get into it. Now, I don't mean a fast way as in it's a bad thing. I'm just saying a fast way to jump into it. I will say there is nothing, in my opinion, that makes up for years of experience. I'll say it again. There is nothing, in my opinion, that makes up for years of experience. You have got to walk the walk, because if there's one thing you discover is, regardless of what all the books tell you, regardless of what all the courses and everything else tells you, you are constantly going to be hitting issues that you're going to need to figure out a solution for. And there is going to be very little help, or the help that you find will be out of date and useless or not work for you. So you are going to have to work extremely hard at trying to figure out these problem-solving techniques that are going to work for you. And that is maybe one of the biggest skills, I think, for developers, right? It's not about being able to recite every function and every, part of the language and things like that. It's about solving problems. Programming is about solving problems. Apps are designed to solve problems. That's why they become popular. Now, boot camps may not necessarily teach you that. So you need to learn these things yourself. Whether it's before or after, you need to be very aware of them, that a boot camp is not the be-all and end-all solution to everything, because there isn't one. It's a constant struggle every day for your career to stay on top of these things and keep working with it. Now, it's a good one. If this is something that you thrive on, then perfect. That constant learning desire is going to pay off big time for you. And you could do a boot camp and get the basics and then run with it. That works out well for so many people. For other people, they need to be, more sort of handheld to be given solutions to everything. And I think that if you're that kind of person, this is not a career for you, because again, people will help you out, but only to a certain extent, right? There is a part at which you need to take over and have ownership of the problem and get on with it. So, for example, if you're constantly relying on someone else to solve coding problems for you, it's not going to work out for you. You're not going to do very well. You're not going to get very far. You're going to get frustrated. And if the people helping you, they'll get frustrated too, because you need to be able to do this yourself in as much as working with a team. Working with the teams is huge in software development, but each team member also has the skills or also needs to have the skills to be able to go away by themselves and work their problems, right? You cannot be relying on other people to solve your problems all the time. And I think that, again, with boot camps, they follow these very nice, very structured paths, but those paths are designed to work. So you're not going to necessarily encounter some of these issues because they want to give you the happy path to get to the end of it, right? They want you to pass an exam at the end or whatever it may be and succeed. That is their business model. Again, nothing wrong with that. But the idea being there is that they need you to get to the end and complete it. They don't want you quitting halfway through, for example. So I'm just telling you now that the reality is you're going to find once you leave that boot camp, there's an awful lot of things that are going to hit you very fast and very hard. If you are fortunate enough to walk into a job, that is fantastic. But you are going to have to hit the ground running real hard, real fast to catch up with those around you and to stay on top of it. So you need to be very aware of that. So I'm not saying boot camps are a bad thing, not at all. Like I say, I think they are a great way to find out, is this the thing for me, and to get started. But I think that they are really not going to help you long term with settling into your career path. That is something you are still going to have to do by yourself. So this is kind of a longer answer to the one that I gave in the live stream. I hope it's helpful. I feel it's honest and realistic, and I think that I've portrayed it from both sides. You know, at the end of the day, you need to decide what you think is best for you, because some of these boot camps, they're not cheap, right? You know, you're still putting a lot of money in. My recommendation would be, if you're thinking about doing a boot camp, find somebody you know and trust and ask them if they've done one and which one they did and what they thought of it. Don't just randomly pick one. That is not a good plan, because you may hit a good one, you may hit a bad one, but either way, it's going to cost you some money, right? So always go with recommendations from other people if you can. Personally, I'm not going to recommend any to you because I don't think that's fair. I haven't done one. I know people who have given me names of ones that they've done, but I'm not going to mention them here because I don't want to show any kind of bias. So with that, I hope this has been helpful. Let me know. Reach out to me on any of the social networks. Just look for CompileSwift or go to compileswift.com/contact. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to get your responses. I'd love to hear from people that have done boot camps and how that worked out for you. Take care of yourselves. I'll speak to you in the next one.